Good morning, happy Sunday. I thought I would show you one of the Sunbonnet journals and just give you an idea of what I did and how I created these. So this is actually the first one I made, and I just used a little bit of pink ribbon and this vintage mother of pearl slide. I like to use those because they're adjustable, and you can tighten it or loosen it as you need to. And so here's the cover. These vintage embroideries I got from Kathy Forbes on Vintage Crafters Cafe. She was offering these up for a very good price, and I had a vision for them, so I was able to purchase these from her and knew that they'd be great for the cover. Behind this, I used this great vintage fabric and this beautiful vintage lace. Sewed on a little bit of a button. I did that so that I could sew directly to the binding, so I added this afterward, but I basically just sewed this to a file folder, so it's very flexible. You can see the stitches here. Added some vintage lace on the bottom and the top, and just wanted to really highlight this vintage embroidery piece. So then we open it up. I have great little Sunbonnet Sue that I retrieved from a vintage quilt. Fussy cut her from the quilt, so she's still on there. This quilt was just a quilt top that was never really used. Looks like I need to glue that back down or sew it. And I found these great vintage photos. This little girl, how cute is she? Used with her little sunbonnet. So I have these slid in here behind this antique Victorian petticoat lace, and these two wonderful pictures, and our little Sunbonnet girl is just sewn down here, or actually glued down here to the petticoat. So she's flexible, and you can enjoy the vintage stitching on her. Just think these are treasures to be enjoyed and not kind of sitting in a drawer. So I was happy to highlight her and even highlight this really pretty vintage fabric, which I really love. I used on a couple of these journals in different places. Some bead sack looking paper and some flowery paper that I thought were appropriate for Sunbonnet Girl. All the papers are coffee dyed. And then this lady wearing her sunbonnet, I just sewed her down to another piece of paper that looks like feed sack. And then this is Monday's child. So on Monday, all those days of the week doing different chores, Sunbonnet Girls were the same way, and she's doing the laundry. So I have her behind this. Plenty of room to add other things. Some more coffee dyed papers. These are really pretty, aren't they? And just very soft. I thought they were appropriate for our Sunbonnet Girls. So, sorry, I'm just having trouble fitting this in the camera today. I used Tuesday and Friday ironing and sweeping, and I made them into pockets, and then I tucked these delightful little vintage tags that I got from my friend Michelle Hill, and added some copies of paper dolls, Sunbonnet paper dolls, and just fussy cut those and added them in here into the pocket, and just used some vintage feed sack as the embellishment so that they would stick out a little bit. And then made a pocket, did some punching behind the pocket is little Bo Peep with her sunbonnet and the nursery rhyme. And then this great card, which is actually an invitation, and it's a copy of a vintage invitation that I own from 1903, which I thought was very cool and delightful, and her great little sunbonnet and umbrella, and a little floral applique that I added there. So then this is kind of a dual pocket. First of all, is this lady cool or what? I love her outfit. Just some paper that I punched out, added some vintage lace. And then this is a little poem about sunbonnets, and I thought it was delightful in here. So this pocket is what happens when you do it with one hand. Delightful little pocket. I put a little piece of cloth here, vintage fabric, and a vintage ribbon. And then this, she's my favorite. I think of all the Sunbonnet Girls, I just love the worn look of the fabric and the worn embroidery that's on this fabric. I took her, this is actually vintage dish towel, and it's actually a little stained and used and very, very soft, which I loved. I made it into a little bag so that you can tuck little things, little treasures inside. So I fused her down, and then I just sewed around the edges because she didn't fit all the way. I cut the edges off of her dress and I applied them here and added some buttons on those. And then inside, I actually tucked this little Sunbonnet Girl needle keep that I made. I copied her from a vintage one that I own. So I just copied her onto a template, and then I used vintage lace and vintage floral pieces and ribbons, and I attached her, made her out of some felt that I had. So I really like the way she came out. So she's tucked inside here, and I just don't want her to be bent, so I don't want to get her folded. So I want to make sure she's in there okay, which not quite. There we go. Then some more pretty floral paper. Cinderella Cake is a little Cinderella Cake recipe from a vintage children's book that I own. Little button and embellishment here. I sewed around this one. This is a little cutout of a piece of cake from some vintage baking book that I have, and I embossed it so it's shiny and just gave it a little bit of dimension. And then here's our Thursday girl doing her baking, and behind that is some vintage ephemera from a baking book that I own again. So just a cute little page for Thursday. Assorted French pastries sounds good to me right now. More floral paper, a little piece of vintage feed sack. This sweet little girl, just love, love, love that sunbonnet she is wearing, and she looks like she's ready to go to church. So I put her with Sunday. And I do love that there's writing on the front of these vintage postcards. It just, to me, gives it way more character. So that was another reason that I use these. Purchased these, I think, on Facebook, and I just love them. So these are copies in the book of those postcards. And here is, I think, my favorite of them. Wednesday's Child is sewing, which of course is one of my favorite things. I used a piece of vintage feed sack that was already cut out like this, obviously for quilt making. So I used that as a background just to give some framing and some color. And then this girl is cut out of a vintage trade card, and I cut her out and I did my normal glue her to fabric so she is flexible, and attached her to this pocket, which I made from a piece of another vintage quilt top that has feed sack fabrics throughout it. And I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of that piece. And then here's another piece of vintage quilt. Somebody made these beautiful bows, which I'm not sure I have the patience to do, so I was really glad to find those and use them, find ways to use them. I've used some for pockets and other journals. I actually have this one pinned, but it's also glued to her little hand, so it won't go anywhere. I just attached another little embellishment with a button up there. So this slides into the quilt pocket. And then we have another Sunbonnet Girl here. This was a paper doll, and I copied her and glued her to fabric, as you can see. This is a great use. I use the fabric from pillowcases. So when I have vintage pillowcases and I cut out the embroidered part and the trims to use for other things, the back of the rest of the pillowcase is a great use for the backing for these things. Just a nice little piece of floral paper there, and then we've got Saturday's Girl going to market here, and she just slides in behind our little sunbonnet paper doll. And then that's pretty much it. This last page, fun lady, right, in her little outfit, definitely looks like a Sunbonnet Girl to me, and slides back in here. And then this cute little Sunbonnet Girl. These were from the same quilt, obviously. And then we still have this. Love the fabric, love the embellishment, love the embroidery. Some of my favorite things are vintage linens, so I was really pleased to be able to, looks like I need to trim her, pleased to be able to use these things, and I just had such a fun time, which is probably why I ended up making 4 of them. So this one is still in my Etsy shop, but the other 3 have already sold, so I thought I'd quickly make a video for you before this one goes as well. And I promise I'll fix her up a little bit before I put her back in the shop. I hope you're all having a great Sunday. The sunshine is out here in Cleveland, so maybe I'll go outside and go for a walk. Have a great day. Bye.